This is the Digital Agency Insiders Podcast. Inside, you'll learn how to build, grow, and scale your digital marketing agency, all from the comfort of your favorite coffee shop. Let's get started with the show.
All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Agency Insiders Podcast. My name is Tabitha Thomas, and if this is your first time on the podcast, I want to encourage you to go and hit that subscribe button so that you can get all of our interviews with all of the wonderful agency owners from around the globe. And also, while you're there, drop me a review. I would love to hear what you think about the podcast and how it's helping you in your business. So today I have with me Nicholas Kirchner. Nicholas is the president and co-owner of Margle Media, a fast-growing digital growth agency, and he is the founder of the Scaling Bigger for Agencies program. Nicholas started his first agency at the age of 18, Pixelus, and later sold it at the age of 21. He has talked about paid social media on many stages, including thought leadership conferences such as the Renaissance Weekend, and the guest lecturer at business schools such as the University of Southern California. He also serves as one of the lead instructors in Tai Lopez's social media and e-commerce educational programs, who's a top 5 business social media influencer as named by Forbes. Nicholas, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you, especially somebody that's in Tai Lopez's thing. That's kind of a big deal, right?
It all came full circle for me for sure. And as we dive into the story, maybe we'll touch on that.
Yes. So the way I always love starting these podcasts, and what I absolutely love about doing podcasts, is it allows me the opportunity to tell the story of all these different entrepreneurs. And I was talking earlier with somebody about how a lot of people have this mindset that you have to have something in your DNA that makes you an entrepreneur. And that couldn't be further from the truth at all, because people come from all walks of life to become entrepreneurs and to, own their own business and do their own thing. So that's one of the things that I love hearing is people's stories. So how did you, at the age of 18, start your own agency? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was 17, and in high school for the longest time, I was training with a mentor who was in the military. I thought I was going to be a Navy SEAL. That was I was dead set on that. So for 3 years in high school, that was kind of the path I thought I was going to pursue. And then I started seeing ads online, making money online. I was just trying to pick up some extra money in high school. So one of the first things I did was I flipped sneakers. So in Facebook groups, Jordan retros, I would go to, I live in Milwaukee, and there's some sketchy parts of Milwaukee, we'll say. So I was driving like an hour from Racine, where I lived at the time, to Milwaukee, to these sketchy neighborhoods to pick up used Jordans, and then I would resell them in Facebook groups, the next day. And I was making maybe 50 to $100 a pair, depending on what it was. And I was like, hey, I'm technically making money online. That's pretty cool. But, I don't want to have to go pick up the shoes and do all this stuff. So what can I do to make money online that I don't have to have that more manual component of it, if you will? So that's when I started poking around in Forex trading, affiliate marketing, Shopify, drop shipping, all kinds of different business models. And this is when I went to my first year of college, right at the start there. And kind of tying back to what you said in Tai Lopez, I remember just sitting on my parents' living room floor and with a yellow legal pad watching webinar after webinar, because back then he would do a lot of the live webinars every day. And I could never afford his paid stuff. It was a few grand at the time, but I would just try and learn everything I could for free and go from there. So went to college, and after the first week, I remember calling my parents. I was like, hey, I'm dropping out of school. I'm going to do this whole online business thing. I know this is what I want to do. And throughout that year that I did stay in college, and then I dropped out thereafter, I'd crushed over 400 books in that time period, because Ty was like, oh, I read a book a day, blah, blah, blah. And I was sitting there like, I don't really think that's possible. And then I started doing it, and I was the kid at college that had his own library cart waiting for me of books I'd ordered in from other libraries, and carrying them back to my dorm. And I would just sit there and read and skip class. And, that's really where I got some of my initial marketing chops, if you will, is reading marketing, sales, branding, persuasion, everything I could get my hands on. And no joke, I was probably reading over 8 hours a day, just of my own information, and then messing around with all these other business models online after I was done reading them. So fast forward a little bit, I saw success with none of those business models because I was trying to do way too many things at once. And, you know, I didn't quite take it public, but those people who have like 8 different titles in their bio, like CEO at all these companies. And I'm like, okay, so that's keyword for you make no money, because I've been there. But anyway, so then I was like, all right, well, what's a combination of all these different things I've been trying that, doesn't require a lot of capital to start, because I was super broke. And, that's when it was services. And that's kind of about the time that people started releasing, programs on how to start marketing agencies. Not like it is now, but, this was 3.5, 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I dropped out of school, and then I just moved, actually, because my girlfriend at the time lived in a different city. So I moved, and that's when I was working in a telemarketing job for making like $29,000 a year, something like that.
Ooh,
and
that's when you learn real quick, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was like putting a cheese grater against your forehead for 8 hours a day.
I used to work at Wells Fargo Financial. And so I that's about the same thing to me. I mean, I was calling everybody trying to get them to redo their loans. It was awful.
Yeah. So I was like, this is atrocious. I was selling fiber optic cables to business owners. So at least I was getting comfortable with sales in one of the most brutal industries, and learning how to talk and sell to business owners. So that was a good trial run.
And you probably learned to grow some really thick skin during all that too.
Oh, for sure. So it was good. So every morning I would wake up and just like, I gotta get out of this. And I don't think I would have went as fast as I did if I didn't hate it as much as I did. But like, it was just unrelenting. Like, I have to do something else. So that was, kind of the point for me where I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in on one idea and try and start this digital agency. And so, throughout my Shopify and affiliate marketing experiences and failed tests, I had learned how to do the technical aspect of all these things. I just didn't have the capital or enough of it to really grow something significant. So after that 9-to-5 job, I would go to every networking event locally I could find in the city for business owners. And so, I launched a website, got business cards, kind of like the bare minimum to look credible, at least. People were like, oh, you don't need that stuff. I actually go the opposite way. And I'm like, you feel so much more comfortable if you at least have your basics covered.
Yes.
Don't spend a ton of time on it and overthink it, but at least, look like you have some of your stuff together.
Yeah. If you're going to be selling digital services, have a digital something out there.
Please. Otherwise they will ask. People say they don't ask. Sure, there's people who don't, but there's an equal number who do. And it's a really awkward position to be in. But so I went to these networking events after work, acting like this is what I did full time. And I was 18 at the time. So these business owners, they'd be like mixers and happy hours. And I'm just there like, dear God, don't ID me. Cause like, otherwise they're going to be like, who is this guy who's 18, wants me to trust him with his money. So it's a really awkward time that I kind of just, didn't care. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go after it. And, if it doesn't work out, oh, well.
I love it. I think that's what youth has for you. That's what youth has going for them. You don't care. You just go out there and do it.
Yeah. And it worked. So I remember getting my first client in legal services, and I couldn't believe when he actually said, he wanted to move forward, and he wrote me a check, and, I'm driving away like the happiest, person ever. It was $1,000 a month just for Facebook ads. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I just created $1,000 out of nothing, which was, after taxes, half of what I was making in a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the job I hated. So that's kind of where everything changed for me, and grew from there.
I love it. I love that story. I could tell you're one of those people that was just a go-getter from the beginning. And I love the fact that you were going to go to the Navy. I love that, because that was That was one of my options too. I wanted to be an underwater welder, as weird as that is.
No, that's a cool job.
Until you look at the life expectancy and it's like 32.
Yeah. For me, it was, I think I just realized if I was any part interested in something else, that training so hard, I would quit and say I have a plan B. Whereas with business, I didn't really have a plan B. I mean, I dropped out of school. I was the last person people thought would drop out of school, from high school and whatnot. So
I'm curious how that conversation with mom and dad went.
It was stick it out for a year. You don't know what you don't know yet.
True.
But I did know when I went to this exploratory fair for different majors in college. Mm-hmm. And they had like just business management, finance, sales, marketing, all the different majors with some professors. They had books out on the table. I'm looking down at these books and I'm like, when you guys cover this material? And they're like junior, senior year, 300-400 level classes. And I had already read, I would say 3/4 of the books that were sitting on the table. And, like the college textbooks, not so much, but any book you would see for sale on Amazon that's popular in the entrepreneurship or business space I'd read. And I was like, so I'm going to wait 3 years to learn something I already know. And this just moves too slow for me. And so I'm pretty passionate on the subject of, higher education for certain professions. And that's something I like to talk about too when that gets brought up.
Well, they always say readers are leaders, and I believe it. So tell me about Margle Media now. So what kind of services do you guys provide there?
Mm-hmm. So we do everything from full creative services. So video production, design, brand design, copywriting. I like to say we're full service in the digital space to an extent. So everything from SEO to web. And then I bring the paid media background, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, LinkedIn ads.
So you really do it all. Nice.
Yeah. So we do, which has been interesting because at my first agency, I just did paid social media work. So now being able to add on the creative piece and being that, nowadays in the digital space, a lot of people have good media buyers, but the creative is kind of an afterthought, where we're seeing now that good media buying is more common. Now it really comes down to creative being that X factor that's setting your campaigns apart from others.
So very true. I love that video background type stuff. I worked for a video production house, so that makes me super excited to hear you doing all of that. So when you're pitching those kind of services to clients, are you pitching the entire gambit of things, or are you just doing like one thing at a time?
So usually it depends on the company. Usually bigger brands, bigger CPG brands or whatnot, they usually are putting out like a request for proposal, and they're like, hey, we need, brand design, or we're looking for paid media here, or PR or something like that. So it's usually more specific with them. Whereas with smaller brands or startups, they're more or less, hey, what do you do? How can you help us? And that's a lot easier to get different pieces of the pie. Whereas big established companies have an agency of record, or they have 10 different agencies, one for PR, one for social, one for whatever. So that's kind of how it shakes out.
Gotcha. So I'm sure it's changed over the years. So when you first started, we're talking about going out to the business events, getting clients that way. So how did it evolve from doing that to what it is now? Like, how are you going out and finding clients now?
Yeah. So back then it was the in-person. Then I got really well known in some Facebook groups. Then I had tons of people referring me. So to be honest, in the first agency, I didn't have to keep going to those events or whatnot. So much of it was word of mouth, which is a beautiful thing, just because of the results. And that was a good testament to what I was doing. And I did a little bit of paid ad work for lead generation there. Nowadays, it's more or less, we do still a lot of in-person, but now we have a sales team, so we're hitting networking events really hard. We've ramped up paid media spending quite a bit. So building out our own sales funnels there. Not too much email marketing or anything like that. It's primarily ads and then the in-person networking. Another thing that's really popular for us is we basically have a team of affiliates who work for large CPG brands that are like, oh, I know VP of marketing here, so here's an introduction, and then, they get a cut of that. So depending on their company's rules and what they can take and what they can't take, because there's some of that too. But to get into big CPG brands, a lot of it is just existing relationships that people have, because for business that like the biggest agencies are bidding on, usually it's two buddies who went to high school together. One of them's VP here. One of them owns agency that's been around for 50 years over here. And they're like, oh, we're going to stay with them because that's my boy. And we've done that for 50 years, so it's kind of hard to break into those larger brands sometimes.
Yeah. When there's trust established, that's very hard to break into.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So, what was your biggest hurdle when you first started the agency that you're in now? What was the biggest hurdle, and how'd you overcome it?
Yeah. So are you talking in the one that I sold or the one I'm at now?
How about we talk about both?
Sure. So the one that I sold, I found that I was getting stuck around 30,000 a month.
Okay.
And that's really where I had some freelancers I was working with, outsourcing some of the work too. But a lot of it was still very reliant on me. Whereas now I'm so reliant on the expertise and the work that my team does. And so just that shift of being able to truly remove yourself is one that is often talked about, that you need to delegate and you need to do this, but it's kind of underplayed as far as how much work it actually takes to get to that point. So documenting every process, making sure they're trained appropriately. And in the first business, I was scared to fully step away, because it's like, you work so hard for the business you have. And if someone screws it up, it's still on you. You're the one who has to pay the bills. You're the one who doesn't have the revenue now.
Yeah.
So it's a risky thing, but I'm definitely now, if it's 80% is good, that's perfectly fine.
I love it. I love it. So how did you make that switch from the other agency to this one, to being able to let go of some of those things? Because for me, it's hard for me to let go of things, because I'm like, I know how to do it. I can do it easily. I can do it quickly. It'd take me longer to teach somebody else to do it. That kind of thing. And that's my biggest downfall, probably.
Right. I think it was back to, I was like proud of doing all the work myself, and then realizing how no one really built a big company by doing all the work themselves. So it's not really something to be proud of.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was a mental block for me in that regard. And also, you could do it faster, but if you look take how many times you have to complete that task, and you're like, okay, well, I can do it in an hour, but it takes me 3 hours to train. So it's like, let me spend those 3 hours training, because I know I'm going to have 3 more instances at least that I have to do this. So at a certain point, the upfront investment you're putting in training, far exceeds or becomes more efficient than you doing it yourself every single time. So I think it's just a mental shift there, and actually doing it. You can't just think it. You got to, at a certain point, let it go. And if you get burned, dial it back, see what you did wrong, and try again. I mean, that's business.
I like that you said that, when you get burned, not if you get burned.
When it will
when
happen.
You get burned,
Something will get messed up, and it's so easy to, in this space in particular, like you see one tweet just ruining companies' reputations, or it's very touchy. And that's part of the risk of being in business, and you can't be scared of those things. It's hard not to be. Easier said than done.
Yes, very much so. I have this whole theory of fail and fail often, but only fail the same time, one time. You only do it once. You learn from it and move on, but don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And
and
so much from it.
Right. And SOPs really do take some of that risk out of the equation. If you're taking your time to actually document what needs to be done, what are those precautions, what is the review system, you get rid of a lot of those errors. Whereas if you just put it off on someone and undermanage someone, where you're like, oh, just do it. And then you're not happy with the result, as the manager or the owner, you still have to be accountable for that, because you didn't really review it. So there's definitely a balance. You can overmanage, or you can undermanage and just push it off your plate, and then it's a poor result too. So
true. So how big is the agency that you've built now? How many people do you have working for you, with you, to get where you are now?
So we have 19 full-time in-house.
Nice.
We are about 20 days away from moving into a new office that definitely isn't, right now it's a very startup vibe office where it's like purple doors and old wood and doesn't look visually appealing. So when you're bringing in those clients that are paying a lot of money, you're kind of like, well, this place doesn't look great, but I promise we're moving.
Yeah.
But now it looks more Google, if you will,
Nice.
and modern and that. So,
and I'm a little bit envious of the fact that you guys are all in one building and together, because, our team, we're all scattered. We all work from home. We all work remotely, which is great, but there is something to be said about being able to come together in one building and be able to work together. So that's.
Yeah. And I'm a huge work from home person. I did for a long time. The first business was entirely remote with me and the freelancers, and I loved that. So I kind of miss that now, but it is nice. And we can run very fast by I need to walk over to this person's office and say, hey, let's meet on this right now, get something done. We don't have to schedule a Zoom or something like that.
Yeah.
So that is nice. It comes with its own challenges. It's like now you have a lot of people to manage in one place. And now there's kind of an element of, if you're not there, not everyone is used to communicating remotely, if you will, and being efficient in that way as much as you have to be. And, if
it
you're
takes
100%,
discipline to be able to work remotely. So much discipline.
It does.
Yeah. So how do you guys keep customers coming back to you time and time again?
Yeah, so we definitely put a lot of focus on retention, because especially with bigger companies, it's so hard to get new business, or it takes so long. It's not necessarily extremely difficult, but it takes forever. Like, these are 6 month to a year sales cycles, depending on how big the deal is. So keeping them is very important. But we have a dedicated account management team. So their only task is to nurture existing relationships with customers. They do nothing else, making sure that everything, I think common traps that people fall into is they either over communicate with the client, so it's a nuisance. They under communicate with the client, so they're like, where the hell's my money going? And then just not being efficient, and things get missed. Or there's moments of friction with clients that I found over time where, you both get on the phone. Last call, you both said you were going to do something. Those things didn't get done. And then you're in the same spot and they're like, well, why isn't this done? And it's just that weird, oh, well, I thought that you were going to do this. And, those are where the relationship breaks down. So making sure there's a one point of contact that all the communication flows through from both sides, and they're kind of the broker. We find that's the most important piece. And how do we keep them coming back? You got to perform. A lot of what we do, and we say growth agency, it's kind of performance marketing in general. We by no means guarantee results, but we're measured on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People aren't going to pay you for nothing. It's interesting how much money the big brands will spend without really knowing where the money goes.
Yeah.
That's pretty common, but smaller brands, definitely every dollar counts.
So I want to hit on that a little bit. So you were talking earlier about, just starting your agency. Your first month, you had $1,000 a month, and that was a big deal then. What does it look like now? What is a big deal to you now in the agency where you're at now?
I would say a retainer like 15, 20,000 a month is a very solid base client.
Good.
Our highest retainer is 50,000 a month right now. That's all video content for them. So, X pieces a month, really growing Instagram, Facebook organically. So that's where a lot of.
Do you guys have an in-house production crew, or do you guys do a lot of freelancers?
So it's a mix of both, right? We have projects. We used to be very much all in-house. So we used to have way more employees. And then, you learn that it might be more efficient to farm some of it out. Yeah. And, so that's the route that we went. So we do have the capabilities in-house, but it's all dependent on bandwidth, Yeah.
Well, and then when you have that many employees and all of a sudden you lose one of the clients, and now you got to keep these employees, but you don't have the income. I've been there, done that, know how that feels.
There you go. Exactly. And it's like, all right, we have, We're burning 15, 20,000 a month in payroll here. But there's not, $100,000 video that needs to be made every single month. So it's definitely a balance. And
yes, it is. That's why I was kind of curious. I'm like, because it is a very, very hard thing to balance, because if you don't have constant video production work coming in.
Yeah. I mean, super tough choices. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about owning a business is making those calls of, hiring's easy, firing is hard, in the sense of emotions. And, I won't lie, we've taken our fair share of heat for it. And it's just like, it's one of those things, it's a necessary evil. No one likes it, but it has to happen. And, we've even had talent not apply because they were scared of, of that. And that's one of the things of like a startup and growing quickly and whatever. It's not super clean. It's kind of messy sometimes. And, I think that though, if you're coming to work at a startup, that it's not going to be your corporate America, you're safe as long as you perform okay type deal. We're definitely looking for the top tier talent that is going to get the results.
Well, and those kind of people that are after that kind of vibe don't care about the environment that they're working in. The creative atmosphere is more important to them than the corporate vibe. So
right.
Yes. All right. So the very last question that I love asking, because we have a book club within us that we read a book a month. What are you currently reading right now?
So I conveniently brought it right here. I am reading Blitz Scaling.
Okay.
And the foreword is by Bill Gates. It's by Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn. And it's basically the lightning fast path to building massively valuable companies. So it talks about that messy growth and how your roles and your employees' roles change as you grow, and being willing to go really fast for the sake of going fast and acquiring market share and fixing the issues later. And you see it with a lot of tech companies. And so I'm interested to get through the whole thing and see what my takeaways are. But well, I've heard good things.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. We're always looking for new things to read. So I always like asking people that question, because leaders are readers. So more than likely everyone is reading something right now. So
very, very true. Very true. There's so many books that I would say have contributed to.
Is there one book in particular that you just like, that's the one that just changed everything for you? For a few?
I mean, maybe very early on, I love How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's always top of the list.
So common, just how to get people to like you. I love Elon Musk's autobiography biography, I don't know, by Ashley Vance. So when someone else writes it for you.
I started to say, when you've read 300 in a year, I can't imagine remembering.
it's hard. I mean, and you just have like one thing that you take away and implement. I mean, I've probably missed so much going through that many, but
So is there any advice you would give to somebody who is just starting out a social media agency that you kind of wish that you had when you started?
Don't try and do everything yourself. It's a grave mistake that you will pay for at some point if you're trying to grow. And I think it's very important that you establish what you're setting out to do. Are you in this for a lifestyle business? Because you can make 10 grand a month and make 10 grand a month and support a family and do that thing. Or you can make the decision to go all in and you're like, no, I'm going to grow this thing. I want a big team. I want to work with bigger clientele. And that's a key decision you have to make, because it's two very different. A lot more is required for sure on the all in route. And it's a lot more risk. Whereas, you can make a very comfortable living. So just set out, and after you have a few clients under your belt, don't spend time being, before you have sales being like, well, do I want to be huge or do I want to only make 15,000 a month? There's too much pondering in the beginning. So I said, don't spend a lot of time on the website or your brand design or anything like that. Just get out and sell.
Yeah.
That was one of the best things for me, because I started seeing revenue, saved a bunch of money. Taking risks becomes much easier when the financial piece is off your back, that you have to make money. Your decision making becomes very different.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've enjoyed every minute of this, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Digital Agency Insiders Podcast. For more tutorials on growing your digital marketing agency, make sure to visit digitalagencyinsiders.com.